wasn't a goal in investing in the Apple relationship in the sense I meant it here. It was a goal for our overall dealing with Apple.
Okay.
One of many.
Okay. Was it a key goal?
I'm not sure what you mean by key goal. It was a goal.
What I mean by key goal is what you meant by key goal in your June 23, 1996 email, Mr. Yates.
That's about investing in the Apple relationship, which meant spending time with Gil Amelio. So I don't know why you can take the word out of there and apply it to a completely different context.
Well, sir, when you say a completely different context, let's be clear about what we're talking about. The completely different context that you're talking about is the difference between investing in the Apple relationship and doing a deal with Apple. Is that what you're saying?
No, we have goals for our general dealing with Apple, which came to a deal. We actually reached a deal either in late July 97 or early August. But there's a separate thing of what was that deal, what were we able to achieve in it, what we were trying to achieve when we were negotiating with the previous management a deal, and what I'm trying to do in terms of spending my time investing in the Apple relationship.
And what you're saying is it is your testimony under oath that although you can't recall actually having sent this email, you're confident that when you wrote this and referred to investing in the Apple relationship, you meant only what you expected to get out of spending time with the Apple executive. Is that your testimony?
Yeah, I was explaining why I was spending time with Gil Amelio.
And that's all you meant to be saying here is your testimony.
That's in reading this, that's what I believe I was trying to communicate to the recipients of the email.
All right, sir. Let me ask you to look at a document previously marked as Government Exhibit 370. This purports to be a email, and the second item on the email is an email from John Ludwig to Don Bradford, dated August 21, 1997, and the subject is Conversations with Bill G. last night. And the Bill G. referred to there is you, correct, sir?
Yes.
And it begins, I was at the exec staff meeting last night. And can you explain for the record what the exec staff meeting was?
He's referring to a regular get-together 4 times a year of the Microsoft executive staff.
And he goes on to say that there were 3 interesting exchanges with Bill and the whole group about Apple. Do you see that?
I see it.
And number 1 is, quote, Bill's top priority is for us to get the browser in the October OS release from Apple. We should do whatever it takes to make this happen. If we are getting shut out, we should escalate to Bill. You should make sure that we are engaging deeply with Apple on this one and resolving any and all issues, close quote. Do you recall conveying to your executive staff in or about August of 1997 that your top priority was to get Microsoft's browser in the October OS release from Apple?
No, I don't recall that.
The top email, which is from Don Bradford to a number of people, dated August 21, 1997, and is also on the subject of, quote, conversations with Bill G. last night, close quote, says that Mr. Bradford and someone else, Mohan Thomas, quote, will take the lead on working out the Apple bundle deal, close quote. Do you see that?
Yes.
Did you instruct your executive staff in or about August of 1997 to work out a, quote, Apple bundle deal, close quote?
I think this is post the August agreement, or late July or August, early August agreement we reached with Apple. And I think there were some circumstances under which they would include or bundle IE with some of their shipments. I think that's what that's referring to.
And is that what your present recollection is that you told your executive staff in August of 1997?
Well, I don't recall specifically what I said to the executive staff about Apple, but it appears Ludwig took out of that he was supposed to make sure that whatever outs that Apple had under the previous agreement for not shipping our technology, that we avoided those being a problem that prevented them from shipping our technology.
Well, Apple wasn't prohibited from shipping your technology in August of 1997, was it, sir?
No, I actually think there were, I don't know the Apple agreement, I haven't read it, but I think there's something in there that if we got certain things done and if there were no problems and it passed tests and we were ready in time, that they would actually affirmatively include some of our technology in various OS releases. And this appears to be a discussion about whether or not we're going to be able to meet the requirements on us related to that.
It is clear that getting the browser in the October OS release from Apple was something that you, Bill Gates, and Microsoft wanted. Correct, sir?
Yes, that's something that we wanted.
Okay. The last sentence of the second paragraph says Bill was clear that his whole goal here is to keep Apple and Sun split. He doesn't care that much about being aligned with Apple. He just wants them split from other potential allies. And that relates to Java, does it not, sir?
I don't have a direct recollection, but if you read the sentence in front of it, that paragraph seems to relate to Java runtime.
Now, do you have a recollection of telling your executive staff in or about August 21 that your whole goal with respect to Apple relating to Java runtime was to keep Apple and Sun split?
No.
Who was at this executive staff meeting?
Probably members of the executive staff.
And who were they?
It's about 40 to 50 people. I doubt you want to take the time for me to guess. We generally get about 70% attendance. looking at this document, I think it's very likely that I was there and John Ludwig was there. But as to the rest of the executive staff, I'd just be guessing. It's very rare for us to have non-executive staff members at those meetings, although sometimes it happens.
Is Mr. Ludwig somebody who you believe is an honest and competent person?
In general, yes.
Do you have any reason to believe that he would make up anything about what your statements were?
No.
Let me ask you to look at a document that has been previously marked as Government Exhibit 371. The portion that I'm particularly interested in is in the second email that is in this exhibit, which is on the first page. And it is an email from you to Paul Moritz and others dated January 22, 1998. Did you send this email on or about January 22, 1998?
I don't remember doing so, but I have no reason to doubt that I did.
The next to last sentence says, quote, "I think we can gain a lot of share with IE on Mac if we do some modest things," close quote. Why were you interested in January 1998 of increasing IE's share on Mac, as you describe it?
Well, I'm not sure what I was thinking in particular when I wrote this mail, but I can, sitting here now, I can give you some reasons that I think I would have had for saying that.
Okay. Would you do so, please?
Well, the use of IE on Macintosh was beneficial to us in terms of our the APIs we had there and the content HTML extensions that we had there. And when you go to people who do content, being able to say to them that those extensions are popular not only with PC users but Mac users makes it easier to convince the content person to take unique advantage of the innovations that we'd made in HTML, as well as some of the innovations we'd made in how the browser was structured.
I want to be sure I understand your answer. You mentioned APIs and you mentioned the HTML extensions. Are those two different things?
Yes, sir.
And am I correct that the broader distribution of the APIs is something that makes writing to those APIs more attractive to independent software writers?
If users are choosing to use the software that those APIs are present in, it makes it easier to convince software vendors to write to those APIs.
Let me ask the question this way. Why were you interested in having Apple distribute your APIs? Objection.
Well, the key issue wasn't about distribution at all. The key issue was usage share by Mac users of the various browsers that were available on the Macintosh.
why were you interested in having the usage share of Mac users of your APIs increase?
That question is nonsensical.
Okay. You were asked earlier why you wanted to increase your share of IE on Mac. Do you recall that?
Yes.
And am I correct that you said that there were two reasons? One dealt with APIs and one dealt with HTML extension.
Yeah, I've thought of a third reason since then, but that's right.
Okay.
There was also a third reason at the time.
Okay.
You might not remember.
Now there might be 3 or 4.
Why don't you tell me the one that you're thinking of, and we'll see if it's the same one Mr. Hine is thinking of.
Well, I've talked earlier about having traffic out of IE is always of value.
So those are the 3 reasons that you can think of now. Is that correct?
Those are 3 reasons that are among the good reasons that raising usage share of IE on Macintosh was a positive thing for Microsoft.
I'd like to know the other reasons that you can think of now, if there are other reasons.
And that's all I can think of right now.
Okay. Why does increasing IE share on Mac help you with respect to APIs?
Because the Mac IE had APIs.
And how does having that help Microsoft?
Because those APIs are in common with some Windows APIs.
And why does that help Microsoft?
If we do things that make our APIs in Windows more attractive, it helps us in increasing the volume of Windows that we license.
Are you saying that increasing IE share on Mac will help increase the number of Windows that you license?
Yeah, I went through the chain of logic that explains that to you. I don't know if you misunderstood some part of it.
All I'm trying to do is get your answers on the record, because if I begin to tell you what I think about your answers, we'll be here all day. So am I correct that it is your testimony here that increasing your share of IE on Mac will increase the distribution of Windows?
I don't know what you mean by distribution of Windows.
The usage of Windows.
No, the number of copies that we license.
Will that be increased?
Through the indirect factors that I explained to you, yes, there's a positive effect there.
So that by increasing your share of IE on Mac, you would expect to increase the number of copies of Windows that you would license.
Yeah, increasing our usage share over time, we think will help us to increase the number of copies of Windows we'll license.
Does increasing IE's share on Mac make it more likely that content providers will want to use IE?
I don't know what you mean by content providers using
know?
IE.
You don't know what
Content providers
providers
use servers. They don't use clients.
Do you know what content providers are?
Yes.
Give me an example of a content provider. Disney?
Disney.
Disney would be a content provider. Disney is an important content provider, correct, sir?
Now you're going to have to give me some context.
Without me giving you some context, you can't answer the question as to whether Disney is an important content provider. Is that your testimony under oath?
Important in what sense?
Important in the everyday, common usage sense of what important means.
Mr. Boyce, you're going down one of those trails that you really don't need to. If you go back, just let me finish the point. If you go back to the original question and answer, Mr. Gates stated what part of the question he thought he needed some clarification on, and it wasn't this part.
I understand that, and I'm trying to walk a balance between doing a number of things, but this is somebody who won't tell me whether he's going to come to trial. And if he doesn't come to trial, this is an evidentiary deposition. And if it's an evidentiary deposition, part of what I need to do is make explicit on the record what I think the credibility issues are. And so when I think we get into what I will characterize, and without meaning to engender a debate, but something that might be alleged to be word games, I think it is appropriate for me to make explicit what's going on the record. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, and I'm just saying that there was no question about content providers. The issue was clients and servers and use of IE. It can easily be cleared up.
Okay, I'll try to do it. Actually, I think probably the word content providers was not used, but the word content was used by the witness. And I think it was in the context of answering.
If you're actually interested, it's the use IE where you seem to be confused about what content providers do. There's no question about what content provider means. When you say use IE, it's people who view content who use IE.
Right. And in order for somebody to view content through IE, that content has to be put someplace to begin with, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that Microsoft has tried to do is it has tried to convince content providers to put content places and in a way so that it was more attractive to view that content using IE than with Netscape's browser. Correct, sir?
It's not the places that make it attractive. It's the way they use the HTML.
What you've tried to do, what Microsoft has tried to do, is get content providers to display information in a way that would make it more attractive to a user to view that content using IE than using Netscape Navigator. Correct, sir?
And we've tried to get them to author it in a way that they exploit our HTML extensions. Author.
And is the effect of that to make it more attractive for users to view the content using IE than Netscape Navigator?
Totally depends on what they do, what Netscape Navigator does with HTML extensions and what that content provider does with those HTML extensions.
Let me ask what I think is a simple question. Has Microsoft made an effort to get content providers to agree to display information in a way that makes that information more attractive when viewed by the then existing Internet Explorer than if viewed by the then existing Netscape browser?
Our efforts have been focused in getting them to author so that it looks good in Internet Explorer. These people are authors. They don't do display, they do authoring.
Let me try to use your words. Maybe that will move it along. Have you tried, has Microsoft tried, to get content providers to agree to, in your words, author information and data in a way so that that information and data is more attractive to users when viewed through the then current version of Internet Explorer than when viewed through the then current version of Netscape's browser?
Our attempts to convince people to author using our extensions is not relative to Netscape. It's just a question of, can we convince them to use our extensions? And yes, we have endeavored to convince them to use our extensions. But that doesn't say anything about what they're doing or how that stuff looks in Netscape.
Are you saying that your effort to convince content providers to use your extension was unrelated to what the effect would be on Netscape?
The effect on Netscape would be indirect. Our intent in doing that was to increase the popularity of our products.
Was part of your objective also to decrease the popularity of Netscape products?
Our intent was to increase the popularity of our products.
I'm now
If it-
asking a different question, and the answer may be simply no. But I'd like to have an answer to my question, which is that in addition to trying, as you say you were trying to do, increase the popularity of your products, were you also trying to decrease the popularity of Netscape products?
All of our effort was aimed at making our product more popular. There may have been an indirect effort in terms of their people choosing our product over other people's products, but the focus is on making our product more attractive.
Did you enter into agreements with content providers that limited the ability of those content providers to make their content more attractive when viewed through Netscape's then current browser?
I'm not familiar with agreements that we had with content providers.
You're not familiar with them at all? Is that what you're saying?
I know that we had some, so I'm familiar with their existence. I've never read one. I've never seen one. I've never negotiated one.
Have you ever discussed with anyone the substance of what's in them?
What I know about them is that they're related to the efforts to convince people to take advantage of extensions we've done that make those extensions worthwhile to end users.
My question now is whether you've ever discussed the substance of what's in those agreements with anyone, and if you have, I'll try
To the
find out
degree
who.
I just described them, yes. Beyond that, no.
With whom did you have those discussions?
Well, I would have been in meetings with various people, Brad Chase, Paul Moritz, Brad Silverberg in a certain period of time.
And did they ever tell you that these agreements with content providers limited what the content providers could do with Netscape?
I don't think so.
Do you know, as you sit here now, whether any of the agreements that you entered into, Microsoft entered into with content providers over the last 3 years, limited what those content providers could do with Netscape?
This question now is perhaps intentionally quite a bit broader than the original question about extensions and so forth. Or maybe it's not intentional.
It is a different question. And if the witness doesn't understand it, I'll
I know
rephrase it.
that when I was going to testify in Washington, D.C. in the Senate, that Netscape or someone was raising these content provider agreements in an effort to create some controversy around them. And so I was given like a paragraph or two summary. And there were about 40 issues in general there, but one of the issues was related to those agreements. And so there may have been something in those paragraphs about the agreements beyond what I knew about them earlier.
But you don't recall the substance of that now, is that what you're saying?
Well, I can tell you there was something about, in a period of time, a certain class who was on our channel bar, they could appear on competitive channel bars, but if they could only pay us, there was something like that.
Yeah, that's an interesting one for you to focus on. Can you think of any reason why you would want content providers to agree that they would not pay Netscape any money?
I know that we had hopes that the